Welcome to School of PE podcast. I'm your host, Chris Miller, and I'm so glad that you could join me this week. We are going to discuss topics about FE, PE, and SC, and we're also going to answer questions that will help students prepare for their exams. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to School of PE's weekly podcast. Again, I'm Chris Miller, and today I have a very special guest here, Mr. Dustin Douglas, who's a PE. So I just want to take a minute here to introduce him, and then we'll dive right in and kind of start chatting with him and see what he's all about. So Dustin, thanks for coming in and spending some time with me. I'm very excited to kind of get to know you and, hear about the exciting things that you do in engineering. So if you could just kind of tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah, and I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you. Again, my name is Dustin Douglas. I'm a PE. I live in Texas, office out of Tyler, Texas. I'm a project engineer, and I work for a company called SOPE, and I cover Texas and Louisiana for the company.
Very good. So, again, pleasure meeting you. As I was looking over your bio, I saw some interesting things that I kind of liked learn a little bit more about. So first, I see that you have multiple PE licenses. You're licensed in, I think, 3 states, 3 good states, 2 of which I think have In-N-Out Burger. So that makes me happy. So why 3 states? And, maybe because you live in one of them might be why you picked one of the 3. But, tell me a little bit more why you're a 3-time licensee.
Sure. So the main reason I got multi-licensure is because of my job requirement. I cover 2 states for GeoPeer. It's Texas and Louisiana. Arkansas is actually the state that kind of sticks out a little bit because I actually don't cover that state, but I actually took the exam in Arkansas and Little Rock. And so that's why.
Exciting. So tell me a little bit about the process. Is the process the same in each state as far as the licensing goes, or was there a little bit different process when you were going from one state to the other?
A little bit different. Texas seemed to be a little bit more in depth with a lot of the application process and the reference process. All 3 states required those items, but Texas seemed to be a little more in depth with the amount of information that they required. Louisiana had a real fast turnaround for granting the committee license, and so that was kind of nice there. They speedily board, and the Arkansas board was pretty easy. All 3 were online, and so they have some similarities but some differences as well.
Very good, very good. So again, you're in Texas, right? Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. I was actually born in Texas. Don't know about it other than I was born in San Antonio, and it's a huge state. So
yes.
Texas made the news quite a bit, and one, Astros, of course, made some big highlights there. But also during this past winter, they had some problem with a lot of people losing power. So can you maybe, talk about your experience with that, and maybe from an engineering perspective, some of the things that might have went wrong?
Yeah, this is when the podcast takes a very entertaining turn. I experienced Ice-Ageddon, and I experienced it, directly. So we lost power at my home and got snowed in. And when that happened, we were out of electricity and water for 3 days. And it was insane. You got to be careful not to take for granted modern amenities, because not having electricity and not having water, especially when the temperature is below freezing, it'll make you realize real quick what a blessing the things that we enjoy every day are. Yep.
I can understand that. I live in Ohio where power outages are very, very rare. But, my biggest worry is, my iPhone charged, how quickly is the power going to come back on? So I imagine this was a much more stressful time for, especially for you and your family. But also, there were some people that went a lot longer than the 3 days without having any power. So was it just due to some extreme cold weather that you guys experienced?
I think it was, the basically the Texas grid system. I think everybody was running their heaters, full tilt. And so I don't think that they were, prepared for the amount of demand that they suddenly found themselves, needing to provide. And so when that happened, they tried to do rollouts, but it unfortunately, it didn't work very well. And so a lot of us were left without power and water for a while.
That's a long time to go, but like you said, you should not take those things for granted moving forward. So, but I mean, it's interesting that you see pictures of it on the news and on the internet, and you have these extreme cold temperatures, and then like 3-4 days later after it was done, it was probably hot out there in the 80s.
Yeah.
It fluctuates out there, and then also you guys get pretty humid out there in Texas as well.
For sure. Texas memes are very popular for, somebody will be in shorts and it'll be snowing and they'll say, what happened? And definitely the humidity, we're near the Gulf. So we get some of that, humidity in the air, and it'll make your shirt stick to your skin sometimes. So.
Yeah, I'm from LA originally, and so when I moved out to Ohio, it was like, oh, you got to watch out for the humidity. I'm like, what's that? Holy cow! Yeah. Once that humidity hits you, it hits you. You're right. It's like you just constantly are stepping out of a shower. So, it seems like the states that you're in are mostly pretty humid states, so you don't experience a lot of dry heat. But there is truly a difference.
Yeah, big time. I actually lived in LA myself back in 2000. Okay. In 2002, and I love the dry air. I wish we had more of that down here. So.
Well, I agree. The one thing I don't miss about LA is the traffic.
Me neither.
Terrific. I was in Austin a while back, and one thing I remember about being out there is driving in Austin is not a lot of fun either.
Yep. Austin's getting to be a lot like California in a lot of ways. Number one, there's a lot of Californians, migrating to Austin because of all the opportunities. And so, it's definitely getting its similarities. It wasn't initially, I think, designed for the volume of traffic that they have now. But, that's what jobs are for, and that's what engineers are there to do. So
keeps a lot of transportation engineers busy, I should say, for sure.
It sure does.
So you said you're close to the Gulf. So you do any fishing? Any good fishing out that way?
I love deep sea fishing. I absolutely do. I'll go out to Galveston and go a few miles out and catch a lot of redfish, and you can catch red snappers and kingfish. Wow. A lot of fun.
Oh, I bet it sounds like it. I used to go fishing those little trout farms. You throw some food in the water and a bunch of trout come, and it's easy to catch them. So deep sea fishing would be a new challenge for me for sure. So, but yeah, very good. As I was also looking at your bio, I was looking at your education, and it's a little interesting path that you took to engineering. So before I spill the beans about why that path seems to be a little interesting, why don't you go ahead and talk about your path to education, or through education, I should say.
Absolutely. I get asked this a lot, actually. So I did start in arts education. It was actually music arts, and I got halfway to a music arts degree. I'm actually a pretty fluent musician. I've been playing, guitar since I was a teenager, and I play drums, I play bass, a little bit of piano, I sing. And so when I was younger, I had some ambitions to maybe try my luck at that. But as I got into college, and life happened. My son, I was having a son that was arriving. And so at that time I thought, it might be time to make a change to something, a little more, dependable in terms of something that I think will be a little more lucrative and something I can count on. And so, I had an opportunity to intern at a geotechnical firm. And it was crazy. I didn't expect it at all. I was just some musician in school, but I was fortunate enough to be introduced to one of the guys that was working there, and they gave me a shot as an intern, and I started working in the lab. Learning a lot of different, lab and field geotech testing things. And then over time, basically decided to switch my major, and the rest is history. Got my civil engineering degree.
That's quite a diverse path there. Much like you, I had ambitions when I was a little one to go into music as well. As in the fourth grade, I played trumpet, and my teacher said I should probably pursue other avenues. So my path to music ended rather quickly. So at least you had a chance to experience it for a lot longer than I did.
Well, and I still do the music for fun. I play drums in a local cover band. We play a lot of the local venues here. And I also enjoy making, this is going to sound kind of ridiculous, but I enjoy making TikTok videos. I have a pretty big following on TikTok. I've got almost 100,000 followers now. So it's something I enjoy doing.
Holy cow, that's a lot. We just did our first TikTok video for School of PE, I think sometime last year. It's funny. I never even heard of TikTok. And then some of the people in the office let's do one. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they did one. It's interesting to say the least. It seems to be a pretty popular thing, but that's pretty cool. 100,000. Wow, that's a lot of followers. What kind of music you play in the band?
So the cover band I'm in, we do a lot of Southern soul and kind of folk music. So we'll play anything from the 60s to now. And it's a 4-piece band. It's just got a guitar player, bass player, a wonderful female vocalist, and then I'm on the drums.
That's pretty cool, man. That's interesting. I mean, engineer by day, drummer at night. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, the band name is Al and the Longshots. I would be remiss not to plug the band. It's Al and the Longshots.
So how'd the name come about?
Allison is our lead singer. And so she thought it would be fun to shorten her name so that when we took the stage, people would be surprised it was a female vocalist.
It's funny. I would have thought Al was Al. So,
same.
So why the long shots?
But 3 of us are just a bunch of knuckleheads. I mean, we're just her backing band. So that made sense.
That's pretty cool. So how often do you guys play?
We play probably once a month, maybe twice a month when the season's right, because we do a lot of outdoor, performances. So yeah, once or twice a month.
That's pretty cool. That's a great, little thing to do in the evenings. That's fun. It's great. I mean, like I said, engineer, and then all of a sudden, who would have known that as an engineer, you're this fun guy after work? So that's cool. So we had a little time to, chat about your path to education. We talked about, some of the, at least where your PE license in the 3 states. But what do you do for an everyday work? I mean, walk us through a day on the job with you.
Okay, absolutely. So my title at GeoPeer is actually region engineer, and it's again because I cover 2 states. Okay. I basically put together proposals. I do takeoffs, and I basically go out and VE projects or value engineer projects. GeoPeers are a type of aggregate peer. It's a ground improvement system. And so basically it is an alternative or an option that you can use to support various foundations and structures.
Wow, sounds really cool. So you said that, I see that you were a project engineer and then a drilling manager. So can you talk about, what those entail a little bit before region manager, makes sense. But tell me a little bit more about the project engineer and drilling manager.
Absolutely. When I first got started and at the geotechnical firm that I interned at, I made my way to project engineer status or graduate engineer status once I graduated. When that happened, I became a project engineer. So I would basically draft up geotech reports and I would assign lab testing and things of that nature. So it was basically pretty, what you would consider pretty generic geotechnical engineering work. And I did that until 2015. And after that, I got the opportunity to kind of make a change in my career and do something that was a little bit of both engineering and business development and sales. And so I, kind of took the leap, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Very interesting. So also I see that you had the Blue Whale Award. Can you tell me a little bit, for one, what the heck is that? Is that a fishing award or...
No, the Blue Whale Award is an award that the company I work for gives out for the biggest project each year. And so in the year 2020, I actually was fortunate enough to land the biggest job, not only of the year, but it's actually the biggest job in company history. So it's
congratulations.
Thank you. I was ecstatic to be able to win the job. And it's been great, been a wonderful experience. And when I brought that job in, they basically awarded me with that at our annual conference just a few months ago.
Very nice. And I guess the title of the award fits what you're doing, or makes sense, I guess, now that I heard the backdrop. So that's really cool. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, growing up, a lot of people, they want to be doctors, they want to be engineers, maybe a professional athlete. So if someone was to come to you and say, hey, I'm kind of stuck on where I want to go, I'm thinking about going engineering, can you give me any advice? What would you give that person?
Absolutely. The first thing I would say is make sure, especially if I'm speaking to young people, really, really pay close attention in school, because engineering education compounds. What you learn at the beginning, you use the entirety of the curriculum. And you need those building blocks at the beginning to be able to put the pieces together at the end. And so, again, if I was speaking to a younger person, especially someone in high school, I would say really, really pay attention in your sciences, in your maths. All the core curriculum, really. Other than that, I would say, when you get into college, make sure you are basically aligning with like-minded students, because it really does take a village, especially when you get into junior and senior level engineering classes, like design classes. Those are very, very group and collaboration-minded courses. And so I would just encourage people to really soak up everything, not only the education and what they're learning, but the relationships and the people that they're meeting along the way.
That's some great advice. So, as we mentioned earlier, you started off with music and then you made your way to engineering. So how soon after you finished your engineering degree did you take your FE exam?
So when I finished my engineering degree, I took the FE exam about 6 months later. I have always suffered from test anxiety. And so I was actually kind of excited to do this podcast because I wanted to be very transparent, especially for all the engineers out there who don't pass the exam on the first try. I was one of those engineers. I had to take the exam multiple times to pass. And so I took it 6 months after I graduated. I didn't pass it on the first one, but I did get it. And once I passed it, I was able to take the PE just a year or two later, and I was able to pass the PE exam.
That's great. So, I guess some of the advice that you're probably wanting to give to people is that, don't give up. You don't pass the first time, get back on that horse and try again. So as you mentioned, you took the FE relatively quickly after finishing up at college. Do you see maybe a benefit of taking the FE exam closely to being out of college, or, do you think, maybe waiting a little while is beneficial? Which way you lean?
No, I absolutely subscribe to take the test as soon as you can to graduation. I was one of those people that was caught right in the cross of the change where you could take your PE pretty much at the same time as an FE and then do your 4 years or what is it of clerical and then be able to apply for the license and get the license. I'm happy for students that are able to do that now and engineering professionals that can do that, because I wish that would have been available for me. The reason being is because when you're fresh out of college, all that information is fresh on your mind, all of it, the structural engineering, the hydrology, the transportation, the geotech, the environmental, all of it. And the FE exam and the PE exam are both made up of a variety of engineering questions that cover, a gambit of, disciplines. And so 100%, I would definitely tell people, please take it close to when you graduate, if possible for you, because it's helpful.
No, I agree. And, I talk to students every day and always, we get students from both sides of the spectrum, right? We have students that are, senior in college or they just graduated. And then you also have those that have been out of school, maybe 10, 15 years that are looking to take their FE. And one benefit I always, and you kind of touched on it too, is, those topics that are on the exam, mathematics, statistics, statics, dynamics, those aren't something that you deal with every day, but at least while you're in college, those are topics that you've been looking at for the last at least couple of years. So everything's still fresh in your mind. Plus, you're still used to, studying for exams, studying for finals. So you're in that study mode already. And then also your motivation is pretty high too. So that's great advice. And then again, you have some people on the flip side that have been out for 10, 15 years. That doesn't mean they won't be able to pass the FE. A lot of people successfully do so as well. It's just about motivation. And speaking about motivation, what motivates you each day?
My family is definitely the number one motivation. I also I get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment from helping other people. And so when you're able to work on a project, especially a project where you can value engineer a solution for a design team, when you can make a general contractor or a structural engineer or an architect or a geotech the hero on a job because they brought you in and they allowed the overall team and the owner to benefit on the project, whether it be economically or on their construction schedule, that's a big deal. That's a very, very rewarding feeling. I want to add one more thing. I would have been remiss not to mention on the previous question about taking the exams close to graduation. I cannot express more how important it is to take a review course like the School of PE. It was imperative to me passing the exam. Like I said, in the spirit of being transparent, for all the engineers out there who watch this, who maybe haven't passed yet, but have tried and just haven't quite made it, take a review course because it made all the difference in the world. It was a concentrated curriculum that I was able to have a better idea of what to expect, what to prepare for, and what to practice, because it was all about repetition, and it was so valuable to me. And I'm really happy to be on this stream, because I feel like I owe a debt of gratitude to the School of PE for my own professional, success.
Well, we appreciate that, and we're glad we were along for the ride to help you achieve your goals. And you seem to have a great passion for engineering, and that's what we like to see, not only in the students that have come through our programs, but just in engineers that we come across on a daily basis. And speaking about review courses, I agree, especially at least when you're maybe recently removed from college. As we mentioned, a lot of those topics are still fresh in your mind, but when you've been out 10, 15, 20 years, courses like these, they help you, because you're right, they give you a succinct set of information to study and prepare from. So definitely helpful. And, again, happy that we were along for the journey to help you get through your journey to become a PE. Life is all about successes and failures and how you deal with those failures. So, can you talk about some of the great successes that you've had throughout your life, and then maybe a failure that kind of eats at you still today, but you didn't let it keep you down and you turned it into maybe a success?
Absolutely. One of the successes in my life that I am most proud of is passing the PE exam. I think the passing of it was sweeter because I had failed, before passing it. And so once I was able to get over the hump, it felt, really, really rewarding. As far as other, successes in my life, I'm very, I love my wife. I love my son. I'm very happy to be surrounded by people like that who mean a lot to me, and I feel a lot of success just by having a family that brings just fulfills my life and enriches my life. As far as things not engineering related, back 20 years ago, before I was into the engineering and I was still doing the music, I did release a single with a band that I had back in 2004 that actually made the rounds on Houston radio for a while. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, So that was a big deal back then. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, the only way I'm getting on the radio is through this podcast. So you've made it through the talent through music. That's incredible. That's awesome. Speaking about you've been on both sides. You've been on the failure side of taking the exam, and then you were able to celebrate on the successes of passing the exam. So a lot of times when someone takes the exam and they don't pass the exam, they get down. They get down on themselves. They think about, maybe, man, do I have to just completely blow everything up and start over? Is it the way I studied, the way I prepared? What happens? What advice would you give someone that comes to you and says, "Hey, Dustin, I just sat for the PE exam. I didn't pass. What do I do?" Maybe it's a multiple attempt that they didn't pass. Maybe they failed twice, and they're like, "What the heck do I do?"
Absolutely. So I'll first just, provide a little commentary on how it feels. When you get that email, for that NESIS email, and it says, "Hey, your results are in," your heart starts racing 100 miles an hour, and you log in, you check. When you see the fail sign, it'll just make your stomach just drop. I mean, it's this feeling in the pit of your stomach, because it's like you just said, you prepped for it. You spent weeks prepping, you studied, and then you don't pass, and it kind of makes you question, what am I doing? Especially for those of us who really needed the license, to continue progressing in the career. And so what I would say is, don't give up ever. Just don't give up, but don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. When I first took the PE exam, I just used a Lindbergh manual. I didn't take a review course, and I went through and I spent a lot of what I consider now to be superfluous time tagging the pages of what I thought would be on the exam. Well, when it came time to take it, there was so much stuff that I had tagged in that review manual that was not on this exam. And so, by the time I took a review course, it made all the difference in the world. So I guess the crux of what I'm saying is, take a break if you don't fail, catch your breath, give yourself time to rest. But when you get at it again, don't do the same thing. Do something different, and you'll get you may get a different result.
That's some great advice. And thank you for sharing that with us. So, engineering, one of the great things about engineering, there's a lot of great things about engineering, but one of the things I like is it's such a broad field. I mean, so many different things that you can do, so many different things that you can get into. If a new engineer just came through, just maybe passes FE, and was coming to you and said, Dustin, how do I find my niche in here? Like, what do I do to find the place that I want to be or should be in engineering? What kind of advice could you give that person?
I would definitely start by just asking them what their overall interests are in engineering. Are you attracted to, water resources? Does that interest you, in that aspect of engineering? Are you more interested in roads and traffic lights and, things of that nature, how those are all made and timed out? Are you interested in dirt, in the soil, and how to make things, how to support things so that they don't settle and so that, we don't have, disastrous things happen. Same thing with structural engineering. I would basically just basically get a person to comb through their brain and say, what interests me the most out of these divisions? And whatever interests you the most, whatever you're the most passionate about, you're going to have the easiest time being successful in what you're passionate about because you're actually interested in it. And at times it will feel less like a job and more like a passion.
That's some great advice again. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. So, as we're coming to an end here for today, is there any last bit or piece of advice you could give to the engineering world?
Absolutely. I'd say for one big piece of advice, especially in the spirit of the unfortunate tragedy that's happened in Florida, engineers it's important to get jobs done quickly. And it's important to hit your client's, schedule restraint. But there's something to be said for integrity and the trust of the public. And so I would just encourage people to engineers to really take the craft serious. And, to me, it's a craft that's a noble, craft and something that needs to be honored and respected. And so I think that would be, again, in the spirit of what has unfortunately unfolded in Florida. I'd say, just remember, the public trusts us. We have a job to do. It's important to maintain good schedules, good budgets, but the most important thing is the trust of the public and public safety.
No, that's some great words of advice there, and appreciate you again sharing that with us. Dustin, I appreciate you coming out here today and spending some time with me. I'd love to have you back on, and maybe talk about your last fishing trip that you had or something, and get into some more engineering discussion. But it's been a great time getting to know you and learning more about you. So I appreciate you coming out. Until the next time, have a great day.
Hey, thank you.